What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Real with Joseph Lamtman. I am Joseph Lamtman. Happy Tuesday to you guys. I got my man Mike Antonace up here today. Mike, what's happening?
Yo, happy Tuesday. It's Taco Tuesday, as LeBron would say.
Speaking of LeBron, we got the Lakers tonight and the Nuggets. Very excited for this series tonight, Mike. I'm very excited to watch this game, watch this series. I think it's gonna be a great series, a great matchup.
I think so too.
It's gonna be very good. I got the Lakers winning in 6 games. Who do you got?
Man, the Lakers have played really, really well, but I don't know, man. Jokic has looked insane. If Jokic can keep doing what he's been doing, I could see the Nuggets going into the first finals in forever. Wait, did they make the finals for Carmelo Anthony? I don't remember.
No, they never made. They made it to the conference finals, but they lost to Kobe one year, and that's the last thing. They had some good teams in the '90s, and they had like Alex English and guys like that. But I can't remember. I don't think so. I don't think they've ever made the finals ever. I think the farthest they've ever made is the Western Conference Finals, but they've always lost to the Lakers.
Wow, that'd be crazy. That'd be crazy for that team to do that. Well, in that case, I hope it's the Nuggets, because I want a little bit of change.
Yeah, I could see that. I just think the Lakers will get it done. I think if Anthony Davis plays how he should on both ends, I don't see how. I think they'll win in 6 games. So. But that's not why we're here today. We are looking forward to watching that tonight. And actually, real quick, you got a quick reaction to the Smith trade, Zadarius Smith trade of the Browns?
We're going to the Super Bowl. That's my reaction, brother. Zadarius Smith is the perfect complement to Myles Garrett. And I know what you're thinking, Browns fans. I know what you're thinking. You said the same thing about Jadeveon Clowney. You're damn right I did, because I thought so. But guess what? This is a 3-time Pro Bowler. He has had 10 sacks in the most seasons in a row with 10-plus sacks is Zadarius Smith. He's on that list. And now he's on the other end. Myles Garrett is arguably the best defensive end he's ever played with. He's going to get a lot more one-on-ones. If he can stay healthy, that's a great addition. Play inside. Love it.
Yeah, I think it's a great move, too. They finally got that book in. You look at him, too. He's pretty consistent. Double-digit sack seasons, a lot of tackles for losses.
Oh, yeah, he's great. Great.
Consistent. He had an injury 2 years ago, but he bounced back pretty well last year. And if you look at his numbers compared to some other guys in the past, they're pretty, especially in the same amount of years, he's pretty on par with being about a top 7 to 10 pass rusher in the league, statistically. So, opposite of Myles, and then you got the interior stuff they've done now with what's the guy's name?
Former teammate
Dalvin Nelson, and signing, or it's not signing. Well, they signed Hurst, and who was the other one?
First
Hill,
and then they drafted Siaki Ika in the 3rd round.
So yeah, pretty big up front. I think they went from having one of the worst lines outside of Myles Garrett to they probably got one of the better lines in the league now, especially at least in the AFC. So.
Before the Zadarius Smith trade, some ESPN guy ranked us like middle of the pack as far as defensive ends, and that's just because we had Myles Garrett. Now we're 3rd.
What do you have as 3rd?
Yeah, we jumped to 3rd after the Zadarius Smith trade. Best defensive line.
Dang.
Yeah, and obviously number.
Yeah. But we're looking forward to that. Mike and I are here today to talk about a topic, though, about isolation.
Indeed.
This is kind of on the fly. This is going to be rough, rugged, and raw today. Just me and Mike just up here talking for about 20 minutes. But yeah, I want to start off this topic, though, because my experience with isolation is this. And it's kind of funny that when I called Mike a little bit ago, I asked what he want to talk about, maybe, because I was trying to figure out something to talk about, but I kind of like how we did it last week, so I was like, well, I have a man up here again. We could talk. It's good to have 2 different opinions up here and 2 different experiences. But I was listening to my man Kwame Brown yesterday, on his show. It was on his 2nd channel, Bust Life 2.0. Anybody know Kwame Brown? He's number 1 overall pick, and I believe in the 2001 NBA draft. He was selected by the Washington Wizards. This is when Michael Jordan went there. And for a long time, for years, I'm only 23 years old. I was born in 99. So growing up, all I ever heard was people like Stephen A. Smith and all these people on TV say how bad of a player he was. He was a bust. And they labeled this guy a bust, right? They gave this guy labels growing up. They said he was the worst player or the worst number one pick ever, right? Even though he did play 12, 13 years in the league, which is pretty good. But he didn't live up to what the expectations people had of him, right? Well, Kwame Brown stayed quiet for years. He never said anything. He was pretty quiet up until about 2 years ago, around this time. Some gentlemen were on a podcast and they were making jokes about him, and Kwame finally stood up for himself and finally spoke the truth of what really happened. And and he said what really happened, why he didn't maybe not say why I mean, but what happened? What there was a lot of circumstances when he first came to the league as a 19-year-old young man, fresh out of high school, the first ever number one pick out of high school. That's a lot of expectations as a 19-year-old coming from nothing. And he really set the record straight. It made a lot of sense. And yesterday on his show, you had Gilbert Arenas on, and Gilbert Arenas talked about how he had reached out recently to someone who was involved with the situation, I'm assuming, and knew everything about it. I can't remember the gentleman's name. And this gentleman said how Michael Jordan wanted to trade that pick because Michael Jordan wanted a chance to try to go compete he thought he could win another championship, or at least compete. And so obviously having a 19-year-old out of high school that's not developed, you don't want to, if you're trying to win, you wouldn't have that on your team, especially when you're Michael Jordan, you're 38 years old. So Michael Jordan told the ownership, I think we should trade the pick. And I believe the trade was supposed to go for Elton Brand, who was already an all-star at that time, an established player in the league. He was playing for the Clippers. Well, Abe Pollin, who was the owner of the Wizards at the time, did not want to trade that pick. He wanted to keep it for Kwame. He wanted to keep Kwame. And so Kwame was taken into a situation now where Michael Jordan, the leader of the team, Michael Jordan. He has a lot of power. He has a lot of media behind him. Michael Jordan has a lot of influence and power, right, Mike? So
yeah.
He didn't want Kwame Brown. And so, according to Gilbert Arenas, when he talked to Michael Jordan, basically took out his anger with the owner out on Kwame. It made it very difficult for this guy every day at practice, treated him like crap, talked down to him, and basically just hindered him in any way from developing as a player. Even brought in Charles Oakley the next year. And Charles Oakley's whole job was just to come in and, basically beat up on Kwame, just, pick on him, harass him. And, it's like Gilbert Arenas yesterday, like, man, if I was in that situation, I wouldn't want to be in that gym either. How could you develop in that kind of environment? How could you, how could you develop? And Kwame had to stay quiet because if anything Kwame did, they would have used it against him. And he would have cost himself money. Michael Jordan would have had the media on him. He had been thrown out of the league. And he had an incident coming into the league where he broke his hand and he was involved in a fight, I believe, and when he got drafted. And so they covered that up because they thought the trade was going to go through. And so Michael Jordan knew he had that against him too, the hand thing. So Kwame Brown just had to take it. He had to take all that crap for years and just stay quiet because, like he said too yesterday, who's going to believe a 19-year-old who hasn't done nothing in the league saying that Michael Jordan's doing this to him, and that's why he's not developing. He's not being given the chances to develop or play. And so, plus Doug Collins was Michael Jordan's guy too. So, you put it all together. No wonder why this guy never developed in that environment. How could you? And it's like it's like Gilbert's yesterday. Who the hell would want to go to that gym every day and be able to put up with that shit? That's terrible. But it made me think along the lines. Now, honestly, I never went through anything like that. Obviously, I'm not Kwame Brown. I was never the number one pick in the draft. Only he was. But I have been through some experiences in my life, and the one in particular, which I've talked about on the show a couple weeks ago, about a month ago, when I talked about my experience when I was in 9th grade. And towards the end of my experience during that time when I was playing football, I went through some similarities. I was putting up with some stuff at practice every day. I was going through really bad panic and hypochondria disorder at the time. But I had a conflict with a certain coach that I think just didn't understand what was going on at the time, to be honest with you. And kind of just you get some coaches that's just how they are. Like they just have their way of doing it, and that's fine. But I remember in that time, I isolated myself, and I stayed quiet. And I stayed quiet and isolated myself because, number one, I didn't know what was going on with me because I was more worried about my personal well-being. But also, at the time, my mom and dad didn't really know what was going on. They thought what was best for me was to keep playing. So they were like, no, you're going to keep playing football or else you'll just go to another school. We'll just let you could just go to a lesser school because, it's a private school. So usually when you go to private school, you want to go there to, play sports and, you know what I mean? You want to go there and invest.
Huge.
What's that?
I said extracurriculars are huge in private school. Right.
Yeah, you make an investment. You want to go in there and grow in that investment. You know what I mean? And
right.
So they're like, well, if you're not going to play or anything, then we'll just put you in lesser school. But I didn't want to go to a lesser school at that time because if the school I would have went to, the environment would not have been good for where I was mentally. And so it took some time for mom and dad to kind of understand it because nobody knew. Nobody around me knew. It wasn't anybody's fault. You know what I mean? Just nobody knew. And a lot of their reactions, a lot of people's reactions in society nowadays when it comes to anxiety disorders, panic disorders, and things along those lines. And so when I hear Kwame Brown talk about, this is why I've always loved Kwame Brown and his story, because I've been a fan of his and supporters, because he's, number one, he's honest and he's just himself. He lives life and he don't give a shit what anybody thinks. But also what he went through and why he was, he had to stay quiet. I don't say isolate himself, but he had to stay quiet during all that and for years he stayed quiet for a long, long time, for almost 20 years, because he didn't want to affect his money, number one, which is very important. Obviously, coming where he came from, you're not going to give that up. You know what I mean? You make it that far, you got to get that. He's got generational wealth, which is why he lives very happily today. Not just because of money, but he's not emotionally or spiritually bankrupt either. He's a very free-willing person, great guy. But it reminds me a lot of like when I went through all that, right? And when I went through all that, when I left that school abruptly, it bothered me for a long time. Because I thought my last image, I didn't really care about my coaches or anybody like that, what the school thought per se, because I had some other stuff going on with them. But I didn't want some of the guys I really cared about, especially like my teammates that I was really cool with, getting to know certain guys. I didn't want them to think I just quit on the team. That's why, you know what I mean? Like I just quit and left.
Right.
Yeah. And for a long time, for years, I stayed quiet. But when I was quiet, I isolated myself, and I went away for a while. But when I isolated myself, the whole time I was gone, it was eating at me for probably 5 years. It started in 2015 until about 2020 or 21 or so. All that time I was carrying that anger, but also I was carrying that isolation in terms of I was always worried about what the hell people thought about me since I left, because I didn't want people that bothered me, especially not people in general, but my teammates, because I didn't want them to think I just quit and just, you know what I mean, just said like, oh, because that team that year, it was a rebuild kind of, I guess you could say, in a culture wise. The team wasn't struggling to win games, but I didn't want them to think I don't want people to think I just quit on them. You know what I mean, Mike? And so, like, I don't want people to think I just quit. Yeah. Like, why I left was because of a personal reason and because I had some stuff going on. It wasn't because, I just didn't want to be there or I didn't care about any of the guys I was getting to know. That wasn't it at all. But for a long time, though, I isolated myself. And I isolated myself because I was in a situation where I didn't really, I didn't really have any, I couldn't really help myself. I couldn't really speak up for myself for a little bit during that period.
Right.
When I go to
sickly
practice,
comforting.
Yeah, like when I go home, my mom and dad are like, well, you better do this or else we're going to take you out of school. So I had to hear that. And then when I go to practice, I got to hear these coaches, they think I'm quitting. But I was having panic attacks during practice. I didn't know at the time because I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? Like I would try to start doing drills. And I talked about this 2 weeks ago on my Zion episode where I talked about, it all went back to a hypochondria when I was 11 years old, an incident I had. And I was able to connect those dots later on, obviously. But at the time, I didn't know. And this is when it peaked. And so, with all this being said, I know it's a mouthful, but when I hear this Kwame Brown story yesterday, and I think about isolation, right? And I think about isolation, staying quiet, and just keeping to yourself, even though you really want to speak up. And for a long time, for years, I couldn't speak up because I didn't really have a way to do it. I didn't know how to do it. And I was kind of I took that, to be honest with you, Mike, I kind of wore that label for a long time of being angry. And I wore that embarrassment for a while. Because I felt embarrassed of what happened, even though none of it was my fault. And looking back at it now, I actually did a pretty damn good job. A lot of people would have, not to toot my own horn or anything, but there's a lot of people in my position, what I was going through at that time, that probably would have went in a very bad direction. And so, by the grace of God, I was able to power through all that and keep a level head every day. And eventually it worked out for my favor. And God took me out of it and put me in a more what I needed to do at that time. It slowed me down and helped my family and I get more educated on what was going on. And the people I had a problem with, some of the coaches, I forgive everybody and I wish everybody the best now. Now, I don't have any ill will towards anybody or anything like that. I think all of it, like I said before, was just a miscommunication, but
right,
just a lack of knowledge. But excuse me, I isolated myself for a while because of all that, and the isolation. Something about when you leave something, you can't speak for yourself. You know what I mean? Like what happened to me, like what happened to Kwame. He couldn't say anything for years. That really, at least for me, I don't know what he went through, but for me, it like really aided me for a while because I'm like, you try to forget about it, but you can't. It's hard to forget about something you haven't made peace with, especially internally. And so, but now I know why God, what let all this happen. All things work together for good. And now I'm able to use it all for better. I've actually talked to a lot of people. I've talked to somebody today from that team, actually. I've been texting and hadn't talked to him in a while. Great kid, great dude. And
great
I was getting to know him for I left. And but yeah, I mean, you put all that together and I'm able to do what I'm able to do now. But isolation, though, and I know I'm ranting, Mike. I mean, I rant so long, but
here.
I'm trying to set the table a little bit for my experience of isolation. I'll let you take it from here for a little bit, but that's my experience of isolation. And I could say the isolation is one of the biggest hindrances, not just with the healing anxiety, but in society nowadays. When things don't go people's way, they isolate. If something happened to you, if your relationship got down, maybe you broke up with somebody, or things didn't go the way you thought, we isolate ourselves because we're afraid of what society thinks about us, people's opinion about us. And I was guilty of that for a while, for years after that incident. I was worried, I was just because it bothered me. And a lot of times it's our own ego and that holds us back and keeps us isolated and keeps us stuck. And if you're isolated, not connecting with people, not doing any of that, you're not going to get better. You know what I mean?
Right.
People, you need relationships. You got to be around people. You can't sit. I get this whole thing nowadays. Everybody says, well, I got to take time to work on myself. And I totally agree with that. But there's also a balance that comes with that. Don't just, you can get a very bad attitude when you go down that road too far. And I did that because I know because I went down that road. Where basically you just kind of say F the world and you just shut yourself off from everybody. And that's not a very healthy way to live. And so, and that's my rant, but go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. I was just gonna add on to it. That's great. And it's something we all do, right? Obviously, I've struggled with it in a more intense way than probably regular person, and I think speak on that as well. But it's something everybody does, like you said. If you go through a bad breakup, what do? I don't want to go out. Depressed. Yeah. I don't want to do it. I'm just gonna stay at home, eat some ice cream, fucking watch Friends. I don't know. And a bunch of people do that, and they don't realize, you're right. They're not taking their medicine, and we're both anxiety sufferers, panic sufferers. We don't like living our safe space, which is, a lot of times people, tie into their house, room, what have you. So it becomes this kind of sickly, addicting thing where, you might feel anxious even at home because you're alone with your thoughts. You're not, you're not getting out there. Right, you're suppressing everything. Not getting
That's
out
happened to
there.
me for years. I was suppressing everything, and over time, it just started building up bigger, bigger, bigger. But guess who had to wear all that baggage? Me.
And it can become sickly addicting. Like, I want to talk. Actually, it just brings up something that I actually spoke to a therapist about today, where, one of the biggest things we can do to cure isolation, cure anxiety, is just expose yourself. Just get out there. Just go.
Yeah.
when
Just by
you
baby
don't want
steps,
to do
even
something.
too.
Yeah. And when you don't want to do something, he said that's when you should do it. Is
Right.
when you don't do something. Which, for anybody who suffers from anxiety and panic, or anyway, for that matter, that's easier said than done, right?
Right.
Like,
But it's good to have. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's easy to say, oh, you have panic attacks. You're afraid if you're gonna go out, you're gonna have one. Well, just go out anyway. like that's essentially what it is. But it really,
it's a mindset issue.
right.
And, it's like you got to. A lot of times we want to run away from the burning building. You got to run towards that burning building. You know what I mean? You got to have a mindset like I ain't letting this son of a bitch to get me today. You know what I mean? Like I'm not doing it because I know who you are. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, and that's kind of like it took me a while to get to that shift, up to racing, because a lot of my anxiety was due to safety from an experience I had when I was 6, which I talked about my last episode. 2 episodes ago, excuse me. Last episode was the one you and I did. But episode 70, I talked about 71, if I can get it right. I talked about that. And once I figured that out where it started, I was able to address, okay, knowing why I try to play things safe or try not to, you can try to hinder yourself, isolate or not expose yourself as much as you should, to help yourself, to show yourself what the truth really is. And yeah, totally. That's a great point. And you got to run towards that burning building.
Yeah, and it can be hard, and it can be really hard.
Yeah. That's why it's good to have like you and I can help each other. You know what I mean? Like today when I talked to you earlier, you were going through some stuff. I got I wasn't feeling too good earlier just because the pollen's real bad right now where we are. It's like make me feel like crap. But like you said, like your therapist. Yeah, or you just don't want to do, or you just do it. You want to put things off. Like, man, I don't feel like doing this today. Like, I don't want to do a podcast today, or I don't want to do X, Y, and Z today because I don't feel right. And your mind can start to give you all the reasons why you shouldn't. And a lot of times, especially for a hypochondriac, if you deal with anxiety, it's a lot of negative ones that are illusions, right? And so, but it takes time to, took me time just to you know what? Okay, I feel a certain way, but so does so many other people are going through what you're going through. It's all how you perceive it. And it takes a while to work on perceptions into reaction. It's really just responding. How do you respond to things? And it takes time, conditioning to do that. But Mike, what's kind of because I know I went there and ran it for a while. What's kind of if you don't mind me, what's kind of your experience, I guess you say, with isolation? Maybe similar to mine, or what you got any experiences yourself, or?
Yeah, I hear I still struggle with it, especially. My panic is really bad. It's easy to
You're breaking out a little bit.
Oh, is this better?
Yeah, there we go. That's better.
But kind of what I was saying was just the biggest thing that I do is I struggle with it still pretty often. It's easier to kind of fall into the routine and the compulsion of staying in your safe space and isolating yourself, like what I said earlier. It's sickly addicting. But objectively, I know it's not healthy. I know it's not healthy mentally or physically, for that matter. No matter how many push-ups I do at home. So the thing to always remember objectively, the best thing for me is to hang around people that love and support you. Hang around, I'm a Christian man, for those who don't know. So I go to, as much as I can, I go to, Bible study. I go to a home church, and being around people that have struggled, what I'm struggling with, past, or at least, mental health struggle, overcome it. That's what it's all about. That's what God wants to see, be bearing each other's burdens. So
you have a right to do that.
Absolutely.
And it's in the Bible. I've actually posted that on my Instagram before. There was a Charles Stanley clip when Jesus needed a friend, even at point. You know what I mean? Like when he was here. Like everybody, you have a right to have a friend to bear your burden with. And that's what we're supposed to do as Christians and as just human beings. And I mean, it doesn't matter what I'm going through, you're going through. We're all going through something. But if we're not communicating with each other, we're not helping each other, if we're not allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and to maybe reach out to somebody maybe you don't really know, you gotta, you know what I mean? Like, just, you never know. Like, you just never know what that relationship could be with that person, whatever it is. It could be a friendship, maybe a new girlfriend, or which could lead to something great, or it could be coworker, whatever it is. You know what I mean, Mike? And so, you always gotta you gotta allow yourself to just be.
Right.
And I think that's why, like, when go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna add on to that point before I forgot it, because you brought it great. Is just talk to somebody. Like, obviously, if you have a body, like a church group of people that you really trust and that care about you, obviously talk to them. If you're struggling with isolation, talk to somebody. There's somebody that cares, that loves you, that hear your issues, and if that person needs to be a therapist, let it be a therapist. Biggest problem that we do is we our base instincts when stuff isn't going right mentally for us, push everyone away, which isn't something you should do. You should be doing the exact opposite thing.
And you actually start to, like, it's funny, like, I have a grocery store I go to around me all the time. You go to the same one. And back when I was in my deep and bad in my anxiety days, I used to go to the same store, right? And when I was in there, I would be in there sweating really bad, like just from the anxiety. I'm racing through the store, I'm panicking. I would barely talk to the person at the register. A lot of times I would avoid going to the register. I would try to go to self-checkouts and have to talk to anybody. And I'll just get my shit and get the hell out of there, right? And it's funny, I go into that same store now, because I still go there all the time, because it's by me. And it's funny, I know a lot of the people in there now. Like, I actually know them. Like, I go in there, it's like, hey, Steve, how you doing? You know what I mean? But hey, what's up? But it actually, it helps, because, like, when I go into that store now, number one, internally, I'm a lot different with my anxiety. I've grown since then, but I'm not where I once was. But when I go in there, though, it's like a comfort. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, when I go in there, it's like, I know these people. They know me. Like, we kind of see each other all the time. We talk. You know what I mean? It's some of them are my age, too. Like, I was in there last night. I had to get a couple items. I was talking to this young girl at the register. She had to help me out with, or I had to go to self-checkout because the other lines are busy. But she had to help me out with something because the machine was down. We were sitting there talking for a little bit. Anyway, just like friendly conversation. You know what I mean? Just like stuff like that. Communicating with people. But it makes you more. It helps. You know what I mean? It makes it's like a comfort thing. It's like, I feel safe. It's like, again, my thing was safety. When I go to the store and I see all these people I know, I talk to them. Plus, I got a family member that works there too, so I see her. I start talking to her because we're family members. Not my cousin, and so, you know what I mean? It's like but if I'd have never allowed myself to just be open just by talking to people, and it's like I used to not do that. But when I go to places now, it's not like I'm sitting there talking to them about the whole life story, but you know what I mean? But it's just like simple things like saying hello to somebody. Smiling when you say hello to them, and just little things like that. Being yourself, being friendly. That's hard to find nowadays, especially people our age, Mike. They don't know how to communicate, especially these guys. These dudes our age, especially men, these dudes are rude as hell nowadays. I'm just gonna be honest. Like a lot of these guys I see, they don't open the door for people, especially women. They just don't do like little things anymore. Like, it's just like crazy. And to me, it's like, that's just how I was raised. And so, obviously, because when you're in the car business, you have to learn those kind of things. It's called being a salesman. So, but you ever notice that too? Like, what's your take on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, It's just a problem. In the modern world, isolation's become like such a thing where people isolate now because like they think they're getting enough interaction from social media. Is this better?
Yeah, that's better.
But yeah, they think they're getting enough social interaction. They think they're getting enough exposure because of social media and because of, well, mainly that. Whereas, they, in fact, they're just isolating themselves, doing, the negatives. Not getting out there, learning how to be better people, I suppose.
It's just communication too. If you isolate yourself, how do you know how to communicate? You're afraid to communicate. And when you're afraid to communicate, that's a bad place to be because you're not going to be able to express the things you need to express to help yourself.
Right.
And it's like little things, you know what I mean? It's just like, man, I was walking out of a gas station. I ran into a store. I was on the bike like about a month ago because I needed a bottle of water. I ran out. And so I stopped and I opened this door for this lady walking out. She's older and probably her 40s, 50s, been around, she's older. I opened the door for her and a couple of these other ladies walked behind her. Man, they thought I was like an alien. Like they literally, they told me that. They're like, man, thank you so much. It like never happens. I'm like, damn, really? Like it's pretty sad just how like we don't communicate nowadays. Or just how we don't like do you know what I mean? Just take our time for people anymore. The little things even. And we wonder why we have so many problems nowadays.
Right. Yeah, and that
not healthy for the soul.
No, it's not. Be kind. Be kind to others. Be kind to yourself.
And just talk to people. Put yourself out there.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike's put himself out there. I put myself out there recently with people, and it's been pretty good actually. It was never what I thought it was. Like, you know what I mean? Like I actually enjoyed it. I would mind talking more. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just stuff like that. Like just I don't know, man. It's just crazy. Like people sit around and complain about they want help, they want all this and that, but yet they don't really look. Sometimes you got to look in the mirror and be honest with yourself. What am I not doing to help myself? Am I allowing social media in the world to dictate my thinking? Who are the people I look up to? Am I watching people like Kwame Brown who go out and live their life and show living his life and is just a real dude at peace? Or am I out here watching all these, listening to this demonic music and all this, looking at these so-called role models that they put out there that really just bought and paid for, that put out this false information, put out this false way of how to live and how to get acceptance and all, just stupid stuff like that, stuff we shouldn't be worrying about, that they have us focusing on. And we sit around and worry about that stuff, being accepted, being liked, rather than being respectful, being your true authentic self, being a human being, be who God called you to be. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
I agree wholeheartedly.
I know I'm ranting a bit too. Come on, one today.
I love the rants. Love it.
But no, I mean, you guys. I mean, what else? Is there something else you want to add to maybe the isolation? Maybe what helps you, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, talking to people, biggest thing, like having a fixed support structure.
I guess
that's so crucial.
Because let me ask you this: what's something you've learned about it that you wish you would have knew maybe recently, like maybe in your past, and maybe something you've learned along the way, experience, or you know what I mean, like where you kind of okay, I see why that doesn't help.
Yeah, a tip that I would say that I learned about it that I wish I would have before is before I started doing it as like a compulsion, like a compulsory, like how do I put it, like self-defense mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Before I let it become a compulsion, I wish I would have not let it become one. If that makes sense. Like when I got bad, I should have kept pushing myself to go out, because now it can be difficult at times, but that's on in the, so that's the biggest thing. You find yourself isolating yourself recently, because of depression, anxiety, what have you, push yourself to get out there. Essentially, you're digging yourself a deeper hole. That's my biggest one.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think one thing I learned through all that, with that experience in particular I talked about earlier, is don't be afraid to say how you really feel. And sometimes you got some people just got to hear things whether they like it or not. It needs to be said. That could be your own family. That could be your authority figures. That could be anybody. But you got to speak how you feel. And you may be right, you may be wrong, but you have to learn. And the only way you learn is by experience, but also by, you have to, a lot of that experience starts with letting it out and trying to figure it out, trying to figure out what's going on. And, it's sad too. Like when I was in that time during all that, I saw a lot of kids, Mike, that were going through some of the same pain I was going through, probably worse though. And I say it because there was a lot of kids who, it was a private school. So there was a lot of kids who grew up in a kind of an environment where everything was dictated for them. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was already predicted where they're going to go to school, where they're going to go to college, what they're going to be when they get older. Everything was planned out for them. But what was missing was the most important stuff. You know what I mean? Time. Real love, real discipline, showing you how to get somewhere. I'll help you, whatever you want to do. You have to commit to it, and we'll help you get there. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. It was just a lot of kids who grew up in a very, you could tell, environments where everything was planned out for them. And it's like I heard somebody the other day. This kid's in 8th grade, and his parents already have decided where he's going to college. And I'm like, that's like fucking 5 years from now. How are you gonna like, you know what I mean? Like 5 years from now. You don't know what's gonna happen in 5 years. Like to me, that's just kind of like you're not how can you be present? You know what I mean? Like how can you be present and how can you if you're constantly, and what that does, it puts pressure on the kid, on the child, on the student, on the athlete. It puts pressure on them. And when they don't meet that pressure, they doubt themselves and they start to label themselves that they're not good enough. And they start to, a lot because the parents are very prideful and egotistical. They're trying to keep up with the Joneses and all that bullshit, stuff that really doesn't matter. And I mean, it's just like, it's crazy that the amount of people I saw and dudes I knew, or people I knew, they had that kind of pressure. They used to tell me about, like, man, I get anxiety really bad too, just because of the pressure.
Yeah.
And it's really sad that that happens all the time now. It's crazy how much that goes on all over the place with parents and their child.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of what we are is what we learn. Monkey see, monkey do. The classic,
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a shame the amount of pressure that can be put on to people so young, especially when our brains were sponges at one point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure you've seen it because you've worked in the car business. You probably see how many customers come in. You can see those kind of people. You know what I mean? You know how they are when they come in, and you're just kind of like, you could just see the pain on the kid's face sometimes. They just look so uncomfortable. And the whole time I saw so much of that, and I was just like, damn, like I didn't realize it until after. But even when I was there, I was just kind of like, damn, these people, I feel kind of bad for them in a way because they can't really be who they want to be. And, and I see it go on now. And a lot of these kids, when they get older, they go out to college, they lose faith. You know what I mean? They turn from everything they turn from like the good things they should keep. You know what I mean? Like their spiritual life, their good values. They turn from all that and they just start wilding out and living crazy, and they just kind of go very worldly. Or you get a lot of people, they get a lot of really bad depression, anxiety from that pressure. They think they're not good enough, and they just start to buy into those labels. But what do? They isolate, they hide, and they try to hide. They don't want people to see them like that because they're afraid they won't be accepted. They hide. If you try to hide everything, because I've been here, and man, if you keep trying to hide, you're just making it worse on yourself. Sometimes you just gotta say, the hell with this, And sometimes you gotta say the hell with whatever these people say. I'm gonna start doing what the hell I want to do to help myself. You know what I mean? How much, especially if you're grown now, you're an adult, you're in your 20s, I mean, you gotta decide for yourself what you want to do. You gotta sit around and put up with this shit and live under that bullshit pressure, because that's what it is. It's just a bunch of crap. Don't buy into it. You gotta be who you want to be, who God wants you to be. And if you're not willing to do that, you're just gonna keep falling. You're just gonna keep falling into that trap, and a lot of times you'll start to isolate yourself, and you won't be able to grow.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That's A plus. That's a great.
What's that?
I said that's an A plus rant right there, brother.
I've ran a lot today. I've had a lot in my mind because I see a lot of this stuff. I'm just like, but also it hits home with me because I went through it.
Yeah.
And there's so many people out there. There's people out there my age, our age, Mike, that I know that they still haven't been able to get out of that, and they wonder why they go through. And they wonder why their parents even wonder why. The people that still are, their family still wonders why they're going through stuff, because they've never been given the opportunity to actually, you know what I mean? Grow. It's just like, hello. Like, I don't know, man. It's crazy.
It is crazy. Wow.
But, you know what you want to add on this, Mike, before we get out of here?
No, I think we wrapped it up perfectly.
Yeah, I think I ranted enough today, but enough from that rant. I'm feeling like crazy, man. This pollen's terrible, dude. Like my throat's bothering me, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the semi-okay weather before like the heat comes. That's when
all the temperature's great. I love this. This is great weather for working out, being out on the bike and stuff, and mowing the grass. But when it comes to allergies, man, they just start acting crazy the last week. Everybody I know's got this stuff. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Crank your AC as hot as possible. They'll fix it.
Or Mike gave me a nice little tip that I kind of forgot about, but I've been drinking more of it. Mike, why don't you go and give that tip? Help these people out.
Are you talking about the mint tea thing?
No, the apple juice. You got to throw.
Oh yeah, apple juice. Yeah, people think that when you're sick, drink orange juice, like especially like if you have throat problem. That's actually couldn't be farther from the truth. It's worse for you. Like you want the vitamin C, but you don't want the acidity of orange juice. So you drink apple juice if you have a sore throat, and it feels so much better.
Yeah, it does. It does work too. I've been buying some good, really like raw apple juice too. It's it works pretty good. But
absolutely.
That was Mike and I's take today. Shout out to Kwame Brown yesterday and Gilbert Arenas for that great episode. I'll link it below the clip. You can go listen for yourself. Yeah, it's crazy, man. How for years our generation thought this guy was a bust, and he was all this and that, and what the media was telling us. But then when you actually go and look at it, now you see what really happened. The truth shall set you free, and let us all know what really happened.
Was it Kwame Brown an All-Star a couple times?
Nah, he never got a chance to be an All-Star. He had some injuries. He kind of just found his role and just found some team. Was going around the league and just found his role in teams, and still played 13 years. Made pretty good money for himself, but it's hard for him. He should have been an All-Star. He had Hall of Fame talent. He was he's number one pick for a reason out of high school. The dude was unreal. You go watch his high school highlights. But anybody, I mean, like I said earlier, how could you go in that environment and develop as a 19-year-old?
Right.
You can't. It's just not going to work. And so, but what he's doing now, though, is far greater than anything he ever would have did on the basketball court. The impact he's having on people now. And so, shout out to you, Kwame, if you see this. Shout out to you. I appreciate you. Really helped me out a lot, too. In my journey, especially the last couple of years doing this podcast. We've talked a couple of times during your show, and you gave me some great advice. And you're always giving great wisdom advice. But shout out to Kwame.
Absolutely.
Who you got game one tonight, Mike? Before we get out of here,
Denver.
I got the Lakers tonight. I think they have to win game one.
Isn't it at Denver?
Yeah.
Denver.
Ooh, Denver. I think the Lakers have to win game one, like they won game one against Golden State, and I think they'll drop game two.
I think Denver's going to kick the shit out.
Oh, really? An ass kicking.
Ass kicking. I think Anthony Davis. I think he twists his like scapula or whatever.
Oh man. Yeah, that's the one thing with him. You never know if can he stay healthy. The whole Lakers team.
Right. I never wish injuries on anybody, but like AD never messed himself up, and like everybody agrees that if he took care of himself a little bit better, he probably wouldn't be hurt as much. But there's this video of him like playing 2K, just like streaming 2K.
Yeah.
And he's obviously playing as himself on the Lakers, and he goes up for a block, the character, and AD comes back down at like 2 minutes into the first quarter in the video game, he gets hurt.
Damn.
As he's playing as himself, and you just see his
crazy.
face.
Even in the video game.
Yeah. Oh, it was funny.
Yeah. But if he plays, if he's good to go, which he's 100%, as long as he stays healthy and they play how they have been, I think he should be the X factor in the series, especially I think defensively on Jokic. I don't think he can slow. You're not going to stop Jokic. He's a great player. But I don't know if Jokic has played against a defensive player like AD. So I'm curious to see how that matchup goes. So, and if I'm AD, I'm running that floor all day. Jokic is slow. So I'm making him work when he's guarding me on offense or whenever we're in the fast break. I'm running that floor all day, make him run up down the court. But all right, well, that's our show for today. Mike, where can they find you at?
You can find me on the Rumble, on the Twitter, on the Facebook, on the YouTube. But
Facebooks.
I'm technically on Instagram, but don't follow me there because I don't use it.
You guys start posting stuff, dude. Why don't you post your dog? Post your new dog on there today. How about that? Make that your first.
Molly, do you want to go on? You want to go on Instagram, Molly? You don't.
Mike has a new pet now named Molly.
Yes, I do. And dude, she reminds me so much about Oliver.
She looks just like her when you showed me before we came on the camera. I was like, damn.
Her brown is a little bit darker, but yeah, it's very similar color.
Very similar in a way.
She's cool. A pit. Yeah.
Shout out to Molly. But
shout out Molly.
Yeah, shout out Molly. But all right, Mike. Well, I appreciate you coming on today, brother. I'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next one. Appreciate you.
Later. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in today. Again, shout out to Kwame Brown, Bus Life. Go subscribe to his pages, Bus Life 2.0. And go subscribe to him. Thank you to Mike Antonace for coming on today and sharing a story, being vulnerable. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. To open up about personal things. And shout out to all you guys. And I appreciate you guys' support. Looking forward to the next one. We'll be doing more videos on Rumble as well. So find us over there. Those are a little different kind of videos, more shorter videos. We'll do instant reactions to news and sports. And kind of just whatever random thoughts I have for that day. Maybe you might see me out. Like I have in a couple of them. I've been out at the park and give and takes on things. So hope you guys enjoyed this one today. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and all that good stuff. See you guys in the next one. I'm out of here. Gone.